Micah and Pamela Bernardy, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Really appreciative that you guys are here to share your story. I think we have probably some people in the church who know your story fairly intimately, but we have a lot of new faces, people who have never met you before. So let's start with this. How long have y'all been a part of Revive? I know it's going to be a split answer, but...
I'll let you first.
Well, since the beginning.
Yeah.
Since the house in Arlington. It's been a long time. Right after high school started, got it in, and it's been a great ride since then.
Yeah.
I love it, being involved. You know, I was going to school, trying to be a firefighter early on, and I didn't mind making a trip back and forth, 2-hour trip every weekend, and that's something I invested my time in, and it's very much so blossomed. So
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it.
And then while you were navigating all that, you met this wonderful woman.
Yeah.
Got married.
So 2014 we met, and I think the first visit was that January of 2015.
Okay.
I came in here, and he was supposed to be serving in kids,
Oh, man.
and I went up with him and got kicked out. And
That's right. I'm so sorry.
well, I mean,
Strangers right here. Sorry.
also, an ex-girlfriend was up there running the thing, so it was just an awkward situation.
Wow.
But you know, he was driving the bus, picking up church members,
Yeah.
so it was like,
Yeah.
you know. But that was 2015, so it's been 11 years that I've been in and out of here. But once we got married in 2018, I became permanent here.
Yeah. And you've been serving in production for how many years now? 4, I think? Maybe even longer than that.
Yeah,
Lovely.
Yeah, I was asked shortly after we got married, in 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Y'all been a big part. Yeah, I don't think people know, Micah, you've been 15, I've known you for 15 years, I think now.
Pretty much. We're 10 years right after high school. I mean,
Yeah.
I was babies back then, but now we're, grown men, families, and we've adapted to society and how churches started small and blossomed to what it is now. And it's just looking back as, one of the original members, it's nice to see how, time invested, especially when at the very beginning we're resetting all this every weekend and having a couple on Fridays and putting things specifically back where they needed to be put back, and which was at the time aggravating, but now that the fruits of your labor you can see and step back and say, wow, it was all worth it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you get to see that. It's crazy because, I talk to so many new people who come to our church and they're just, man, this church is amazing. I love it here. I love the environment. And like, you have no idea what we've had to do to just get to this point. And there's so much more in the future, I know, but yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. So y'all have been married for how long now?
On year 7?
Yep, 7.
No, year 7.
Okay, so y'all are too young to not remember. Okay,
Wow.
all right. 7 years, that's great. And
It's happened.
yeah. So walk me through, you meet, you start dating. What was that process of dating like coming in? Because you met each other like fresh. We don't have to go to the background, it's up to y'all, but
Yeah.
just met each other fresh. It wasn't like we met at church or anything. We didn't know each other growing up.
Right.
What was that like?
Right. We met online, and it was just one of those swipe right type situations, very surface level. You look nice. Let's see what this has to offer.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows Micah, he's not really big on social media as far as sharing himself or his face. So it was side shots and a group firefighter picture. I didn't know which one was even him, but I was like, I like the name. We'll go with it. We'll see. We'll see what's up.
No.
Yeah, I was like, are you looking at the picture going, okay, hopefully one of these guys shows up. This is okay. Herbert is
Yeah.
good.
I was like, they look all right. And, when you're young and you're like, oh, a fireman, So I was like, whatever, let's just see what happens. And he was still traveling to Sulphur Springs for the fire academy. And I had my radius very small. So he just happened to be back in town in Arlington at that time, or we would have never met. We ended up talking, and I had just turned 21, and I was a little, I wouldn't say wild, but I had just turned 21. So all of my friends were older, so I was finally able to like go have drinks with them and do that stuff. And so that's not his vibe at all. So he was like, gosh, this girl drinks a lot. She's going out all the time. And I was like, you're boring. And we actually had these conversations to start. I was like, you're kind of boring. He's like, I think you drink too much. And we just kind of were like, well, let's just have a phone call because this is all very just like through text messages. So then this went on for a few weeks. We finally had a phone call. He came into town right before the holidays. And we went on a first date and realized we had a lot in common. Well, not a lot in common, but a lot of our values, things we wanted in life were similar and aligned. So, and then, that was the first time I really knew what he looked like, too.
You weren't getting catfished, which is
I
great.
was not. My mom was like, why are you smiling so much? And I was like, did you see?
Yeah.
So cute.
He was cute too.
And then, the rest is history. It was him from then on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And no, like, ex-boyfriends came back and...
I was talking to someone else that I had met online as well, who was actually from my dad's hometown. So we had that in common, which was really cool. My cousins knew him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of told him I had met someone that I was interested in and wanted to see where that goes. And he had some not so nice things to say. So that solidified that I made the right choice. But otherwise, for me, no,
Yeah, it all worked out.
no
It was
issues
good.
with that. Yeah.
Almost sounds like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
Hometown boys who you thought you were going to be with, but you
Yeah.
might be a creep. And so now it's like,
Right.
I'm going with this guy. That's
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
So yeah, I mean, it was a distance things, and I don't know how it worked out on those apps, but
Yeah.
being at Fire Academy for the whole week and just coming home for the weekend, just happened to be in the same radius as her, and yeah, she hit right, and I was interested obviously, but we talked for 3 weeks or so before we went out on a date. But what solidified it was having late night conversation to 3 or 4 in the morning to really talk and see who she is as a person. It's like, yeah, okay, well, she doesn't just party. I mean, it just happened to be around her birthday time, and that's like anyone, it's
I like my wine.
yeah. I mean, which is fine, and that's exactly right, and it worked out. And first day took her to her favorite restaurant. Well, actually, what happened was I messaged one of her best friends, and I asked her best friend, I said, hey, what kind of flowers does she like? What kind of food does she like? What kind of movies does she like? So then I lined it up, brought flowers that she liked, went to Japanese steakhouse, hibachi that she liked. So I was able to line it up real well by asking her. She said, hey, how did you know all this stuff? I said, well, I got, one of your friends to give me all the information. So
I knew
that's
you
what was good for a
were
first
there.
impression, right? So I did that, and which was great.
He took me to see Dumb and Dumber too, which Dumb and Dumber,
One of your faves.
one of my ridiculous,
That's
but
awesome.
one of my faves. And we went to the second one, and I was like, winner,
Oh.
just trying to understand my humor. Yeah.
So it was a very, very good time.
You need to do a dating class online. I think, I know you're starting the business, it's going well, but I think that right there could be your moneymaker.
Exactly.
Letting guys know that this is how you do some first dates. That's really awesome. I didn't know all that.
Always very thoughtful.
Yeah.
He always has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long did y'all date before you got engaged?
2 years?
Yeah, too.
2. Yeah, did you know, Micah, how much time went in and you're all, okay, I think this is right?
Well, an engagement is important.
Yeah.
You have to plan it, right? And being able to obviously, afford a ring at that time.
Yeah, we were
being
22,
22, I'm like, how much can this ring? But luckily, one of her friends owns or her dad's friend owns a shop in Ohio. So I was able to, with her mom's help, contact with him and try to get the right size, the right uniqueness, style, and so we were able to work all that out. But as far as the engagement goes, you want to make sure that it's not like something's quick, right? And all of a sudden,
I was ready. I was waiting for a whole another year.
she was ready to go off the bat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like how guys are. It's like first thing you think about engagement is like you have to get a ring, and how much is this ring, right? $3,000 to $6,000. He's like, how do I save this up?
Yes.
And it'll take you off a minimum salary at that time to save up $3,000. Takes 8 months, 9 months. So that was one factor. But at the same time, it's like, okay, the time of the year, because that's important too. The season, fall engagement, winter engagement, which I did an engagement in the winter time. Went to the zoo in Columbus, Ohio, and during the Lights Festival, and I was able to contact one of her friends from high school that was a professional photographer.
He didn't know we knew each other though.
Oh, really?
So we were going with my friend and her boyfriend at the time to the zoo thing. And he said, do you have photographer recommendations? And so she had recommended this girl. And when she put her camera down, I was like, I've known you since we were kids. How are you?
So small things worked out to
Yeah.
know the goodness.
Absolutely.
So-
Yeah, and then, you know, I don't know why people don't talk about this more, but, you know, for men, I think sometimes women think we're non-committal. No, we're non-financial in the middle.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to. And I have that same thing, you know, it just goes through your mind like, okay, I have to pay for rent, and I have to pay for medical insurance, and I have to pay for gas for 2 cars and insurance for 2 cars. And and it just starts adding up. And if you let that fear get to you, though, it'll postpone forever.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, you really have to trust God. All right, God, you're gonna have to provide for this because I want a wife.
I mean, you don't want
It's a good thing.
Yeah, you don't want to disappoint her. You don't want to wait and be that one guy that everyone else in the family sits around and says, "Dude, you've been engaged or together 5-7 years. Where you gonna pop the question yet?" But I never knew that was going to happen. But at the same time, it's like, what's the right amount of time? Because you want to get to know your, future wife at the same time, right? On all different levels. So 2 years was a good time. Then our engagement was about 2 years before we got married. So we got 4 years. And so everything is timed correctly.
Yeah,
So
it's a beautiful wedding. It was one of my least favorite weddings, not because of y'all. I don't know if y'all remember. I just got in a car accident. Yeah, and I was never forget. I can still feel the pain of having to stand there the whole time. But I just remember looking at Micah and thinking, this kid is not a kid anymore. Like, this is a grown man. It gets me emotional to think about this. It's crazy. I'm just proud of y'all. I really am. I didn't know that's outside of the conversation we want to have, but it's a great background.
thank you.
So you get married, and let's dive into really the heart of why we're talking.
Yeah.
What was the time frame from we get married to, you know what, I think it's time we start having kids? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, he was ready. You know, he had always told me, like, I want kids, as soon as possible. And I was always, I come from a working mom family. He didn't, she raised them, homeschooled them, all of that. And so it was just very different dynamic. So, like, I didn't grow up seeing a stay-at-home mom. So, like, I never was like, oh, I had this desire to be a mom. Like,
You don't have siblings, do you?
I don't. I'm an only child.
And then you have 4 total.
Yeah. So I never really had that. And he was talking about kids from the jump. And I was 21, still in school. And I'm like, whoa, no. But we had talked, and we did a cruise for our honeymoon. And we went to like a high Zika area. So I was like, let's wait 6 months at least just to make sure like that's not going to be an issue. So it was about 6 or 7 months after we got married that we started trying.
Yeah.
So we got to enjoy each other's company first before we start making that decision.
Yeah. And we did live together before we got married. So we had a year together as far as getting to know each other on that level, because that's a big adjustment too, is actually starting to live together.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So we had about 6 months, and I think I was like, okay, I guess we can start trying. But then his sister got pregnant, and then like I was like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it just something clicked in me. As soon as she got pregnant, I was like, okay, our turn. Like, I want to raise our kids together. She lives here, so it was like, let's raise our kids together.
Yeah.
Together, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So
you have this conversation.
yeah,
And it's like, hey, we're ready.
yeah,
Where does it go from there?
downhill, really.
I mean, you look at everyone else's life and you're like, okay, well, they're having kids now. And at the time, I just got on with, Dallas Police Department. And so in my mindset as a guy, I was like, okay, I solidified my career, or at least the paycheck that I need to bring half, right, to the table. So that was great. But at the same time, it's like you start to think about, how much a kid is going to cost. Not at the time, we didn't know that we're going to go through infertility, right? So there's that first level of, okay, you need to provide for a family, And then after about 6 months, 8 months, we started thinking, okay, well, we're not getting pregnant. Okay, and maybe another 6 months, and then it's like, okay, it's been a year, so it's got to be an issue. So that's when we started to do the checkups to see on both sides, okay, there's an issue here, right?
Yeah.
And we both have issues. And then now we're going to see a doctor. So, okay, how much is this going to cost? What's the timeline? And then basically it just opens up this huge road of where we can go down.
Yeah.
Because it could be, we just, conceive naturally, or we try, a few drugs to be able to align everything to go a little bit better, or go the worst route, which happened to be our route, which we have to do the full IVF, go all the way gun ho. And
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I always knew that there was a possibility I would have issues. I'm an only child for a reason. My parents struggled to have a second child. They kind of, I mean, I think it was about 3 years after they got married, they finally had me. And then they tried, I don't know how long after, to have another, and it just didn't happen. I had woman issues all through my teen years, so I was like, there's a possibility. Before we got married, I had some testing done, and there was some, again, possibilities, but I was always written off, like, you're young, you're not there yet. Like, you're not trying, we'll cross that bridge later. Like, don't worry about that right now. So there was always that thought in my mind, like, this might not happen as easily as it does for others. I didn't have regular cycles, so obviously that's part of the process. And so, like he said, it was about 6 months. We started getting a little discouraged, and then it was COVID, and the world shut down.
Yeah.
And the medical procedures and anything elective was shut down. And apparently fertility treatments are considered elective. And we were always told, which, by the way, they say a year of in conception while you're trying is considered infertility. Like, you have to wait a year.
Yeah.
That's not true. You do not have to wait a year to seek treatment. So we were naive enough to think we did. And so we waited.
Mm-hmm.
COVID. And so finally I could go get like my annual appointment with my OBGYN, and that's when we addressed it. And that was late summer, early fall of 2020. And she did some more testing on me, and she was like, okay, so here's your diagnosis. It was PCOS. So she said, you're going to have to see a specialist at that point. So from there, we did some testing. They're always going to test both partners.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. We never expected at this point, we had welcomed a niece and a nephew. So 2 of his siblings had conceived with no issue.
Yeah.
So and that plays a part too in how you're feeling.
Can you talk about
Yeah.
that feeling? Because you're a year in, and I don't want to open up any wounds or anything.
Oh,
but,
yeah, no.
I don't think people understand how that's navigated publicly versus privately.
Yeah.
Right. So you're seeing not only your extended family having kids, you're also online.
Yep.
And then there's also, there, not to sound crass, but there's 16-year-olds in our church getting pregnant at the same time. And so you're watching that, and how are you navigating that emotionally? How are y'all having conversations? What does that look like?
He was raised in the church, not that I wasn't, but very different foundations, I would say. So he saw those things very differently than I did. He was becoming an uncle, and he was super excited about it. And not that I was not super excited. At first, I was like, yes. And then the further we got into it, it was so heartbreaking to see, because you love these babies, and it's just so hard to be in a room with them.
Because you desire that.
Yeah.
Because you see your brother or sisters having kids, and you're like, man, they're so happy. That's something I want to have my own, and not being able to have it at the same time is kind of heartbreaking. But you got to trust God, and that's basically a conversation we would have.
Yeah.
Is keep trusting, keep going. We'll find our way, and we found our way, but it was difficult because it was our way. And IVF is so abroad. It's just there's so many different navigations to go through it, and ours was very difficult. Hers on the physical part was very straining, mentally obviously too. But it's just that thought of seeing other people around you have something that sometimes they don't even want. And then you have all this desire to have something now. And I never had that desire until, I was physically and mentally ready for it. And as a man, you get to an age where obviously you have a career, and then you get married, and okay, what's the next thing, right? Society says, okay, have kids, right? And okay, it's a thought, right? But then when you actually have that instilled in you to want to be a dad, it kind of just changes your whole environment.
Yeah.
And then for me, it was, you want it, but I just shut it down, kind of put it under the carpet a lot because, I'm trying to be a guy, be tough, and, don't think about it too much. But in the mindset is, it's something that really hurt me because I just had such a desire for it.
Yeah, yeah. And once you make that decision, you're all in to that decision. And at the time, we were welcoming a niece and a nephew, and we didn't know that he was going to have issues as well. So he's trying to comfort me. I'm blaming myself this whole time. Of course, your body is not your fault. But when you're in that, it's like, what's wrong with me? Why is this not happening? I'm letting down my husband. I'm an only child. I'm letting down my parents to be grandparents. It was a lot. And then you see, friends, or like you said, people at church accidentally getting pregnant, complaining about getting pregnant online. And, whatever it was online. Check yes if you made it through the year without having a baby. And it was like, I understand now having 2 kids, like, we would probably be excited making it through a year, now of not having children. But the unawareness that people have, which that's great that they don't have that experience and they can be, crass about it. But for us, it was like seeing those things, it just hurt because it's like, that's the one thing we prayed for all year.
It's like a wound that
Yeah.
just keep getting like salt.
Got to the
flicked into
point
it, just a little
where
bit here and there. So
you're in a weird spot because people are getting pregnant around you. And it's like, you're the last they tell because they don't want to step on your toes. They don't want to hurt your feelings. And you're in a weird spot because, like, at some point they do have to tell you.
Yep.
And how you react is huge. And how you address that is also great because people would be like, how do you want to be told something like that? And I found that the best way was a text message. Don't call me. Don't FaceTime me. Don't do any of these things that are going to put me on the spot for a reaction because you're not going to like what happens. And that was tough because in this time before we had Liam, we actually got lapped by some family members and friends and coworkers and all of that. And what I mean by lapped is they had 2 kids while we were still trying for one. And we know that now we're probably those people.
Yeah, sure.
And it's not lost on us. We understand that it's hard to see.
Yep.
And so we're up to, a niece and a nephew? Or we had 2 nephews and a niece.
yeah,
Before
at that stage.
we had 2 nieces and 2 nephews before we had Liam.
Four.
So yeah, there were 4 of them. He was 6. So yeah.
And so you're just navigating that as a family, trying to celebrate while grieving as well.
Yeah, and he's constantly, trust God. He knows the desires of our heart. And I'm over here like, what's wrong with me? Yeah. It was like a very, very, it was rough.
Yeah, can we speak to that dynamic? Because usually that's how, at least I've seen it with couples, is there's always one, whether it's the wife or the husband, faith, rooted in, like, I know this sucks. I'll cry at 2 a.m. when you're asleep, but like, I know God's going to do something. And then the other spouse is usually the one like just falling apart.
Yeah.
So how did y'all navigate that? But I guess a precursor question would be, did you, Pamela, because you seem to be the one who was more like very emotional about this, did you feel like people were putting labels on you or stigmas on you from infertility, or do you feel like you were putting that on yourself? And how did you fall into that? Because I don't want to say this in a obstructive way, but to me it feels like a trap. It feels like you fell into a trap, and now you're stuck in this identity that you never wanted, you never asked for.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that, and what was that like with him, who's going, hey, we're just gonna pray, we're gonna believe God?
Well, hearing that when I was venting was super frustrating. But it's what I needed.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I'm like, if he wasn't doing that, if we were both breaking down, we wouldn't be where we are. I needed that. But I did. I let it consume me. And it's hard not to because babies, kids, families, they're everywhere. You have holidays that celebrate it. You have birthdays, you have all of these things. So it's everywhere and it was unavoidable. And it got to the point where like I started identifying myself as an infertile. I am, and I know I am, but that's just one part of my story. And I figure that out now. But at the time I was living in that. I didn't show it publicly. I went to work. I did my job. They never knew, but at home, I was just a different person. I was very down and, upset and I was putting all my eggs in that basket.
Yep.
It got exhausting in our marriage. We were fighting. We didn't want to even spend time together unless we were trying to have a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, when you're trying to, encourage her, what percentage of you actually believes the words that are coming out of your mouth? And here's
That are being reciprocated?
yeah, no, I mean more of like, did you actually believe what you're trying to say to her, or are you trying to coax her more into some encouragement? Because I think, the big stigma with infertility is we've really focused on the female. Rightfully so, right? She's got 95% of the words you hear.
I know.
So, yeah, you bear 99 really, whore. Yeah. But the emotional toll, I remember the first time I experienced a couple in our church, and I remember he broke down at the dinner table in front of me one night, and I didn't realize he was hurting. I had no idea because it was the same thing. He's like, I'm encouraging my wife, we're trusting, we're praying. And he just broke down one day. He's like, I don't even know if I believe this.
Yeah.
Like, I hate this. Were you struggling with that?
Well, I was, because it's like someone's got to be the foundation here, right? Because it was hard, trying to encourage her, but it's sometimes, I would feel like the words are just bouncing right back off. Because I 100% believe exactly, hey, God's going to do it, right? And the mindset, I just knew he was. And at the very least, it's a story that we get to at least try. I want to give it our best shot, even if it didn't work out. We're going to try this for 5 years. If it didn't work it out, I don't want to look back and say we did give it our best, right? So and there'll be times I'll talk to her or say something and I feel like it wasn't being reciprocated, but she had a reason to not reciprocate it because she was going through it. She's a different mindset than I was. I'm very short and sweet, just muscle it out, keep doing the hard work, and it'll work itself out. And God is in control. Yeah, it's short and simple, but that's just the way I've lived a lot of my life, especially with my business. And it's like, it'll work out, just keep going. And
Well, the way you were raised.
and I was raised that way. And it got to the point where if I, would say something, it's just like verbatim. It's the same thing over time. And it's like, finally, there was a little bit of a break. I'm kind of skipping a little bit with our miscarriages, but there was a break where we had, one of our eggs get fertilized, and it's just like hope all of a sudden just a little spark.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you going in a way. So
Yeah. Yeah, he wholeheartedly, from my perspective, believes he was going to do it. God was going to do it. He's going to work it out. But he watched his parents struggle, and God always worked it out.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, again, raised in church, but very different. And we didn't have those conversations. And so it was just different. I was like, okay, whatever you say. Like, yeah, I hear you. I believe it. But it's like, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
And so it's very frustrating to keep hearing you say, I'm not a patient person. So I was like, I get it. Okay, it's going to happen. But like, how long am I going to be hurting? How long am I going to be in this depth before we see that light? And he's, like he said, eventually we got to that point where it was like, okay, God's telling us to be patient.
Yeah.
And I finally was like, we've got to be patient. It was like we were out of options and we just sat. And we were like, okay, where do we go? What are we doing? And
in the middle of that too, because I don't want to skip over that. I mean, that's a very important point.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with it,
Yeah.
can you talk about how many children you lost? Because I don't want people to think of this conversation, we're just skipping from, hey, we were infertile. Hey, all of a sudden we had a baby.
Right. Yeah.
No, other parts important. There's funerals in the middle of this. And do you mind speaking to that?
Yeah. So when we first started seeing fertility specialists, we found out that we both had infertility factors that led to one option, and that option was IVF. All of the other treatments for our diagnoses were not options. We could have done it. Our doctors felt waste of time, waste of money. There's no point in trying all of that. So we jumped right into IVF end of 2020, secretly. We didn't tell anybody. We were seeing a specialist. They didn't know anything. And we made a good batch of embryos, and we thought, well, our kids are coming from the embryos. And then we had that hard conversation. Okay, what are we going to do with these embryos? Because in our head, we are at this point. God got us here. We have 6 beautiful, healthy embryos. We only want 2 or 3 kids. What are we going to do with the rest of these? And that's a separate conversation in and of itself. But we started, with an embryo transfer and that process in early 2021, and it failed. We had all of these expectations. We started planning, how are we going to announce this baby? This baby's going to be due here, like this time of year. You just start planning for this future, for this baby, this hope. And, I took a test. I told him I didn't. And I took a test, and it was negative. And I was like, well, maybe it's just too early. And then, you get that call once you do your official blood test that, I'm sorry, you're not pregnant. But there's always a but. But we did one. Your success on the second time is going to be a lot higher. Like, your chances are higher. So I say we jump right in. So we didn't really have time to grieve that. We were like, okay, we're back in it. So we had another embryo transfer the following month, and we took a test on, what was it, St. Patrick's Day, luck of the day, right? And it was positive, and that was the first time we got to see a positive test. And we were over the moon to just as quickly a week later get a call that, well, you're pregnant, but your blood test, the numbers are pretty low. They always repeat them when you're pregnant. The goal is for it to elevate a certain percentage. They say like 80% in 2 days, or 50% or something. They want it to double, essentially. And ours went pretty much down to nothing.
That works.
And it was already a low number, and it just dropped. And so we stopped all the medications, and we had our first loss. They call it a biochemical pregnancy because it's not soon enough to have an actual fetus growing and all of that. The embryo itself implanted, it created that HCG that gives you the positive pregnancy test. So yes, it's a miscarriage, early miscarriage, still a loss. We saw a positive test. We were like, this is it. God did it.
Baby,
Yeah, we're pregnant. We did it.
Yeah.
We never expected a week later to be told that it wasn't going to happen.
And how is that emotional roller coaster? For 7 days, you're on a high.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you dropped down to an even lower point at the end of that 7 days emotionally, or was it just back to same old for us?
I really struggled with my faith at that point because it wavered throughout this whole process. I never lost my faith, but it wavered all over the place. And after that, because I just thought, I'm going to get pregnant. When I get pregnant, that's it. God did it, and I don't have to worry about anything else. So when I was terribly messed up at that point, and we still hadn't told our family that we were going through IVF or doing anything. They had no idea. And so after that, we realized we need a support system.
Yep.
We need some help because we were very low. So we filled in our families. So we didn't share it with the world, but we filled in that, with
people who
with that.
will give us the support that we needed at that time, because it was difficult. And we see the positive and what you hope for a very long time. You finally got that opportunity, and in your mindset, you're like, okay, you got 5 more chances, right? But at the same time, you think about, okay, well, what would have happened if this pregnancy worked out? What kid would I've had? what child would I have had now
Who would they have become?
and it's like you can kind of go down that roller coaster, and all it is negative thoughts. So you don't have to say stop and just, hey, trust God. Say, hey, God, relieve my mindset, and just try to turn a negative outcome into a positive of hope for the next opportunity. That's kind of what we just went for that next one.
Yeah, it was hard. We struggled with it for quite a bit. So we were like, okay, let's just step away for a little bit and reevaluate. So we did some further testing. Around that time of our first transfer, I realized I needed an outlet. So I created a private, because we weren't telling anybody. So I created a private Instagram where I shared everything on there and, met a lot of girls that were in the same area of their journey as I was, and met some online friends and supporters, some hype girls essentially. And that really made a difference, just being able to have an outlet. But after that miscarriage, it was like, okay, people in our life really need to know. We can't hide this anymore. And I got the call of the miscarriage while I was at work.
Oh, man.
And I work in healthcare, where every day I have to ask the woman, is there any chance of pregnancy? And I realized how triggering that question was, not just to me, but to any woman on the other side of that just may have done something similar or struggling the same way I was. And it shifted my perspective a lot on even asking that question. I hate asking that question.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever think about it that way before this.
Isn't it amazing how it reshapes your entire perspective of life, of others?
Yeah.
Yep, that's crazy. Yeah, and your social media account, I will say, I know I've told you this before, but it really helped me understand a lot better what the process looked like, what you were feeling, what you both were feeling, how to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Like your honesty and transparency there was so helpful because, I think people they have good intentions, right?
Yeah.
And so, but when you say something like, I'm so sorry for your loss, to a woman who's had, 3 children die now, it's like, okay, there comes a point where like, just don't say a word to me. And there were times where I remember you posting that, hey, just don't talk to me about it right now. Mm-hmm. Like I'm okay with hearing that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, here's where we're at right now. These are the things I really just don't want to hear. And I don't know why there's so much of a stigma around that, but I just want to tell you, it was so helpful for me because it also taught me how to pray for y'all. Because I honestly, when you first announced this, I think the prayer focus is, Lord, give them a child. Mm-hmm. And I learned pretty quickly that's not the answer to the prayer, or that's not the answer that you needed in that moment.
Yeah.
Because, and you can speak to this, but do you really feel like if in that state of mind, in that depth of depression you're in, if a child just miraculously happened, would you all of a sudden been, ready for that in that state of mind?
No, at this point we were traumatized.
Yeah.
I think moving forward from where we were at that point, getting pregnant or just being like presented with that, here's a child, that would have, I think, rocked our world a little bit because we had all of these negative thoughts like, okay, well, maybe God's not calling us to be parents at this time or whatever it was. Like maybe there's a different purpose for our life right now. So it was really hard to navigate. Like, what are we doing here? Like, is this what we're supposed to be doing? Because religiously, he was like, is IVF the right decision for us? Like, he really wasn't sure he wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And I looked him in the eye and I said, this is what we have to do. And something that really resonated with me way before our fertility journey was, and I'm sorry, I can't remember if it was you or my former pastor, but he had said, God doesn't give you bread. He gives you the ingredients to make a bread. And so I was stuck in that, like, Micah, this is our ingredients. Mm-hmm. Like, God made this science. Like, I truly and wholeheartedly believe, like, we are led to do this if this is what we want. Yeah. And I think we have a solid marriage foundation. Like, we can get through this. And we'll have those hard conversations and we'll get that. But if we hadn't have done that, I mean, I don't think our marriage would be what it is if we didn't go through what we did together.
Yeah. So what is let's go back up the hill a little bit, right? So we're down at the bottom. what is that anchor moment, or is there an anchor moment? Not you have your first child, but is there a moment that kind of reignites some faith in you and gets you to go, okay, something's about to happen, and we just know it? And how did that come about?
Yeah. So we were out of our 6 embryos, which we never expected to see it to that point. So we were down here, and that's when we decided to pause. Let's be patient. Let's see what God's calling to us. My dad at the time worked for the American Heart Association, and he was on his own, like, I'm just gonna put some feelers out there. These people are doctors, a lot of these people, these, cardiologists, all of that. So he had reached out to higher up in the company asking, does anybody know of good fertility doctors or any recommendations for...
Second approach.
Yeah, we were out of embryos, and we were like,
Not blaming the doctor, but at the same time, it's like, this isn't working. This protocol is not working. Let's just get a refresh science doctor or something else that kind of just gives a positive vibe for next opportunity.
We really weren't even sure like what we were going to do, if we were going to keep going with all of that. But
Well, can I ask a question too? Sorry, I don't know if we're but no, on your mindset of this, because we approached this at the very beginning, right? You don't have to share details of numbers, but I mean, this is not cheap.
Yeah.
This is there's people who put second mortgages on homes to be able to do this, right?
Well, I mean, insurance isn't, now insurance is hopefully going to cover or at least help IVF. At the time, yeah, zero. And
So what is your mindset going into that?
so my mindset is basically, at nighttime, this was when I was first a cop in the city of Dallas. And obviously going through that can have its mindset and its trauma. But at the same time, I think about, okay, how much are we going to have to spend to afford the IVF treatment? And it's like, okay, there were some nights I was having, heavy sweats because in my mindset, I was okay, but my body was telling me differently. And listening to my body was the most important thing, but it happened for a couple of months. I was like, why is this doing this? And there was also a time when I had like a heart murmur issue. It wasn't really that, but it was stress, and at one point in time, not too long ago, put me in the emergency room because, it's just too much stress. But at that time you're talking about, I need to do something else. And before I was a cop and doing my other endeavors, I'd worked for other guys that had built companies. And this is basically what Bernardy Lighting started. Doing Christmas lights, outdoor lighting. And so I had to learn the business. And my mindset, and it was kind of more God was telling me, say, hey, you've always wanted to do something else. Being a cop was not what you specifically wanted to do. I know, like, he knew I wanted to help people out, and it was a good time for me, a good journey. But during COVID, when I got quarantined, that's when I laid a foundation for Bernardy Lighting. And then once it started to progress up about a year, I was like, okay, this can supplement my income. And so that really is what pushed me to go down that road to start my business more professionally, because I knew, hey, if even just supplemented $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for the year, hey, this is going to help us out a little bit. And so that's what built the foundation to where now I've been doing it for 2 years full time. But the mindset at that point in time, it's like, how are we going to afford this? You don't want to go in debt,
and people do.
But it's like, is that what we have to do to have kids? And my mindset's like, okay, I want to have kids so bad. This is what we may have to do. But that's what sparked it in my mindset to, let's go ahead and see what I can do to supplement the income. And it's paid off. And it was very intriguing to me to want to start.
I think it's important. Because you just said it, like, God doesn't give us the bread, he gives us the ingredients. Yeah. And I know there's sometimes people are just asking for a financial miracle.
Yeah.
You got a financial miracle.
Correct.
But you had to start with the ingredients that God resourced you with to get what you needed.
Yeah.
And that's really, really...
And I remember him telling me, say, hey, I gave you, 2 hands and common sense. Go out there and do it. So usually it's the fear of what ifs, or what's going to happen if this outcome. Because, being a cop and starting a business, you're like, no time whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's like, let me make the time. And that's what I did. Started slow, which is great. If you're starting a business, it's good to have a foundation career and then start it side, not just quit your career and go full into the business. And that's not what I did. I did both for 3 years, finally, until I worked it hard enough to where, okay, now I can do this full time. And it's been a blessing.
Yeah. Can I ask, do you think that you would have started Bernardy Lighting
No,
had this not been the issue?
no, because
You
I
just would have coasted it.
I basically forced myself, knowing that we're gonna have to afford this somewhere or another.
Yeah.
I have to do something else because I could have picked up extra shifts at work, but I have a lot of guys that I talked to, and I did the math. It's like, an extra 30 to 40 grand. I mean, I could either start the business and spend that 30 to 40 hours a week being a cop, or extra being a cop, or 30 to 40 hours a week pursuing the business. And so I did that route instead.
So it's birthed out of necessity.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is I think, again, going back to people praying for financial miracles, like if you don't have a vision for something, why is God going to provide?
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. So it's not just a money thing. And this, honestly, too, from what I'm inferring from knowing y'all, this wasn't a money issue. It's not, God, we want more money.
Yeah.
It's, we've been believing for a miracle, and this is a resource you're going to use to help us get there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we had ambitions. We had just purchased a house. I mean, there was things where it's like, can we afford this? Yeah, probably. Do we want to spend all our savings on this? I mean, not necessarily.
Yeah.
People do it and they do what they have to do, but like in our minds, like if we touch our savings account, we're broke. Like, what are we doing? We're broke. Why are we going out to eat? So it was very hard for us to just be like walking into a clinic and they're like, here's what you owe us today. And we're like, excuse me?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, it was all up front.
Yeah. So you knock zero up?
Right. You pay for everything up front.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was on his insurance with the police department. Nothing was covered. So it was all out of pocket. All the medications are from a specialty pharmacist. Like, it's not you go up to your Walgreens and get them. No, you had to pay to get them shipped to you. And that was a hefty bill in and of itself. And so we got through that. But yeah, that we were told after we ran out of embryos, you need a surrogate.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I'm sorry, we took a side journey.
Yeah,
But let's get back to where you were.
but then you talk about money.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about let's pay for IVF to get those embryos, and now you've got to pay someone else to carry your child.
And hope it works out.
And insurance, right? And insurance doesn't cover that either. If you have a surrogate, they're not paying for their hospital bills. You've got to have a special plan, and they have to have a special insurance plan.
Wow.
And it's all of these things, and you're talking about adding another $100K to your already expensive fertility journey. And so that's when we were like, well, we're not doing that, are we? Like, that.
It came up as an option.
And then we started thinking like, well, if you go through an agency, that costs more money because the agency is going to want money. And they have all these contracts, and then you have legal fees. And then we're like, okay, so how do we put out there to find somebody to do this outside an agency?
Yeah.
How do we find someone to carry our child? Like, that's such an awkward and weird conversation. Or, like, do we set up a GoFundMe? Like, no, people aren't going to want to pay for that because you have all those people that say, why don't you just adopt?
Right.
And we didn't need to hear that at that point in our lives. So it was like, how do we go about this?
And are these conversations just consuming all your time?
They're not all my time, but it's brings in thoughts that you don't need.
Yeah.
Just trying to navigate normal life.
Right. It takes over the mind more than it does our conversations, because we were still on different pages. He's still saying God's going to work it out, and I'm still saying no, but what are we going to do? Like, let's be realistic about this. So those conversations were had, but we were just pausing. We were like, I don't know. We'll just take a break. And that's when my dad said, hey, they recommended this doctor at UT Southwestern. He's new to the area. He's not from here. We're like, okay. And it was a God thing, because throughout this whole embryo journey with our first round of IVF, I started a new job, and they had fertility benefits with the insurance. And so we were like, okay, well, let's at least see this guy. We have the fertility coverage. Let's get an opinion. Does he think we need a surrogate, or does he think I'm capable? And at that point, after that consultation with him, that was that hope. We were like, okay, this guy has a whole new perspective for us. And we never looked back from that. Like that, seeing that consultation with that doctor, that was it. We knew.
Without getting too detailed,
Yeah.
what was the difference?
So
Like, was it biological or was it more medical on his side of just more like you have a doctor now who's more positive?
we came from an immunology specialist. He was very thorough he was a reproductive immunologist. So
Okay.
that was kind of what he was looking at. And he was our second doctor that we were seeing. So our first doctor was like, I've done all the tests I know how to do. I want you to see an immunologist to see if there's genetic issues or some sort of autoimmune, something's going on here. So we saw him, we did those tests, and he was treating those immunology issues. And he's like, but it didn't work. So at this point, like, I can't help you. I think you need a surrogate. And he tried to explain to us, sometimes a woman's body just rejects a male's DNA. Maybe you guys aren't compatible with each other.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Right. And he's like, so your
One more
body.
thing to think about.
Yeah. So he's saying, you have these embryos, but your body is attacking his part of the embryo and killing them.
Is that legit?
I don't know. That's what he's
Coming
telling
from a
us.
professional.
I mean, that's all we knew. Yeah, we're like, okay, that's a thing.
Did you want to punch him? I would want to punch him, like right there. Yeah, baby.
We'll say,
So it had to be,
don't-
that's for sure.
if people ask me for doctors, I definitely say avoid him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this.
sorry, anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the second opinion, he was like, well, did he even repeat what you had issues with your first doctor? Did he even redo your biopsy to make sure that that issue has been resolved? And I was like, no. He's like, okay, well, that's the first thing we're doing. And he did that, and he said, yeah, that's still an issue.
Wow.
It didn't get treated 4 transfers ago.
Wow.
He's like, that's step 1. And so when we saw that, we were like, okay. So now we know why all of our embryos didn't work out up from that point.
Yeah.
This doctor never even tested it again. Yeah. So from that point on, we were like, all right, we're rocking with this guy. We're going to see what happens. And we started fresh.
Fresh hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Because they do their due diligence, and every doctor has their own way of doing things.
Right.
But then you have each client has a specialty. But sometimes people are in their old school ways, and they won't try something. Like, oh, that's not going to work. And this last doctor obviously was the one that just was the one. So
Yeah. Some doctors don't cater individually to a patient.
Yeah.
They have this is my protocol, this is what I'm sticking to.
Yep.
And then there's doctors that are innovative, and they realize, like, with research and certain procedures, like what works for somebody isn't going to work. You can have the same exact diagnosis. If it's not working, let's switch it up. Let's figure out a different way. And he was not
Yeah.
that guy. He was like, it didn't work. Something's wrong with you.
be on your way.
And hearing you aren't going to carry your child after you've just lost all your embryos,
Yeah.
you just sit in that like, oh, well, as a woman, you get to that point. Like, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to carry my children, not against anybody who can't and goes those alternate ways. And that's
It's a very
beautiful.
harsh.
But yeah, at that point, I was like, I'm never going to have a baby shower. I'm never going to have maternity pictures. I'm never going to feel a baby kicking. It was like I was grieving all of that now.
Yeah.
Along with, am I ever even going to be a mom? Now I'm not even going to be able to, if I become a mom, it's going to be a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough, but this new doctor really changed our mindset.
And what was the time frame from seeing this new doctor to finally getting pregnant?
6 months?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through what are your thoughts, emotions, feelings, both of you? You finally find out you're pregnant. I mean, because you found out before, right? This is not new,
Right.
but you're taking a new approach.
Right.
So are you going back and forth between, yes, it's exciting, what if this doesn't work? Like, what does that look like?
Well, we got further on this second one.
Yes, so we had 3 previous losses, and we actually had seen a baby on the second pregnancy. So we had ultrasounds, everything was positive, it was fantastic, and then we go to an ultrasound and the baby's gone,
Yeah, there's
essentially.
no baby in the sack.
But yeah, it just, it
Yeah.
yeah. And so that was something that you can't really prepare for. You don't expect. And then the third loss was the same as the first. Your labs just didn't continue to grow. And so this time we were like, well, we don't, we want to see a heartbeat. We had never seen a heartbeat. So
That's the next stage.
right.
Hear
Those
the heartbeat,
first,
see the little flash on the screen. you're like,
right. Those
oh my
first few weeks of that pregnancy, you're like trying to be excited because everything leading up to that with this doctor had been easy and perfect and everything was falling into place. And that was God. God was in all of that. We didn't have all that anxiety. We were just like, all right, this is what it is. Of course, sitting there in that ultrasound room, you're terrified because we had that trauma of being in an ultrasound room and it not going well. And it's so funny because I sound like I was the more emotional one, and I was. But as soon as we got to that point, Daddy took over, and his emotions were the emotions. And I was like giggly and happy, and he was crying, which is awesome. I love to see that excitement in him. But yeah, we saw that heartbeat, and it was like, as soon as we saw that, like, there was a relief. And like, okay, well, we've made it the furthest we've ever made it. Of course, we're anxious because we have that trauma.
Yeah.
But
we try not to let it
yeah,
put us down. It's always in your mindset, it could fail. But once you hit a certain threshold, the percentages just skyrocket higher. And then every week is just like, it just gets higher and higher and higher and higher. And, you get to that point, you're like, oh my gosh, we're at 3 months, 4 months. It's like, okay, this is going to work out. And as time progresses, right, you stop thinking about all the negativity, and then all the positive thoughts start going in your head. Is that okay? Being born and first year and clothes and all this stuff starts going in your head, and getting the nursery ready. And it's like that break that we had finally, just, the ice broke and we're able to finally swim. Yes.
there's scanxiety is what we call it. And it's real, but like he said, you get to a point where it's like, okay, this is becoming more real. We're getting to this. We hit this stage. Okay, now we hit this stage. Now we hit this stage. Of course, I was on my phone because I'm kind of a pessimist at times. And so I was like, there's an app and it's, what are my chances of miscarriage today?
Wow.
And it tracks pregnancy. Yes. Wow. And so I was on there, not every day, but usually like every week. But I just wanted to see that number going down. Yeah. But my percentage of miscarriage was going down. I'm getting closer. And so we did get to a point where we could celebrate, and we were excited, and we started the planning. And a lot of women that go through infertility, they don't share their pregnancy once it's finally successful, and they're to that point because they're scared of the other shoe to drop, so to speak, because they've been in similar situations as us. And I was the total opposite. Obviously, I waited until it was like first trimester was over because that's just what people do. But I was like, no, if we're going to lose this baby, they deserve to be celebrated while they're here. Yeah. And they're still celebrated in a different way, the babies that we've lost. And we'll always talk about them and remember them. But I was like, this baby is real too, and we're going to talk about it. And so we probably overshared, and we were very aware that there were people in our lives that were seeing that, and their hearts were breaking for themselves. And we were aware, and I am always going to share at the end of these things, like, we are with you. Like, just because we're on the other side of things right now, we were there, and we still carry those feelings, and we know what it feels like. We want to be able to be there for those and answer the questions. And I feel like people see us now and they're like, I can't talk to them about it the same way.
Right.
Because what if my outcome isn't their outcome? And that could happen.
Yeah.
But I just hope that our testimony is like, whatever God has for you, he has for you. And if you can sit in that and trust in that, you'll be okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, what year was this that you found out for sure you were pregnant with Liam?
2023.
23, that's right.
Yeah.
Was that in December?
He was born in December of 23. So we found out we were pregnant in April Fool's Day. It was April Fool's Day.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I actually played a trick on him.
Yeah.
Did you really?
I
What'd you
did.
do?
I took a test. So, by the way, for listeners, April Fool's Day pregnancy jokes online, don't do it. Very disrespectful.
Yeah.
You can do it to your partner privately. That's funny, whatever. Don't post it where people are struggling. Okay, anyways, so I kind of did the opposite. I was like, I took a test. I know you told me not to take a test, but I took a test. We had transferred the embryo 5 days before. And he was like, why'd you do that? And I was like, well, I just want to let you know it was negative. And he was just staring at me because it's me. And he's like, okay, what's she going to do?
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to react? What do I need to do? I need to catch her? She's about to cry. Like, what are we doing? And then I was like, April Fools. And it was positive, and we were all excited. Yeah.
Don't ever do that.
No, it's a little different with Gianna, but yeah, we were overjoyed and nervous and all the things.
There's too many emotions. Because a normal pregnancy is exciting, but when you have a story like ours where it's like so many hiccups, you want to get excited, but it's real hard not to think and have those thoughts flush your head all of a sudden. It's all the what ifs. You know, the enemy comes in and says, what if this, what if that? Sometimes you just have to say, stop. God, take control, and, you know, we're going to think positive. Yeah. And then that's what we did.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you really don't know what others are walking through. Like, you see the pregnancy announcement, and you're like, oh, good for them, you know. But looking back, these people are starting to share more, and they've had losses, and it's so common. And so, yeah, like he said, if you've never experienced that, your first pregnancy, you are very naive in that, and you are excited and you do all of that. But then you realize, like, maybe second kid, they have a miscarriage in between, or they had a miscarriage before that first baby. And it's just so common, and it's so heartbreaking, and you share it or you don't, and you process it however you choose to process it. But for us, like he said, we had that journey that was totally different from someone else's journey to navigate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how would you, this might be a really loaded type question, but for each of you individually, so Pamela, if you were speaking to a wife, Mike, if you're speaking to a husband, how do you encourage somebody to say, you're going to have to learn to trust God regardless of the outcome? Two different mindsets, two different emotional vulnerabilities, two different even physical vulnerabilities through a process like this, whether it is IVF or adoption or natural or anything. Like, there's so much intertwined in that. But you did just kind of, you said it, but you just kind of really quickly passed over it. Like, our journey is not your journey. The outcome may not have been your outcome. So how do you get to a point where, hey, we're just going to trust God regardless of that? How would you try to encourage somebody?
well, as the husband or the man, I mean, you have your significant other going through the same journey, and you want to be the foundation of the marriage, all right? And you want to be the dad. But being able to just trust God is, you know, those are words, right? And you can get it into your Bible and you can pray, and was all great, but at some point in time you have to really just know and find yourself, say, hey, how am I going to be able to physically and mentally endure this? Because being able to endure something like this, you don't know if it's going to last for a year. You don't know if it's going to last for 5 years. You know, you just have to remember and say, okay, I need to be strong for myself first so that I can then be strong for my family. Because if you don't take care of yourself first, you can't take care of your wife, your future kids, and then, you struggle at work or you struggle, in your day-to-day life. And if I was to talk to, knowing what I know now to my, when we first started trying, yeah, I could have said just, hey, Micah, just keep going down the path. It's one thing, but, I didn't have very many people that I talked to because me individually, I'm very private, introvert, and that's how I am. So I don't talk to a lot of people. If I was going to talk to myself, the very beginning is to be more open, express myself a little more, talk to, her more and say, hey, what's going through, or, talk to people who influence your life more and ask them to kind of go on this journey a little bit more and not be so closed-minded to where you think as a man, I don't need that. I can get through this myself. Just God and me and let's go. Let's see what happens. And there were times that he told me, hey, talk to this person, or it's okay to be not weak, but be vulnerable. Because us as guys, we don't want to be vulnerable. We're like, that's weakness. All of a sudden, society tells you, okay, don't talk to anybody, just gut it out, work hard, and your time will come. And that's not how I should have approached it, but I did that way. And I should have been more open, open my heart a little bit more, my mindset. Don't be, closed-minded to think, hey, just keep trying and trust God, which was basically the foundation of the way we did it. But I need to, I needed to make sure that there's other people around me that wanted to help, and I should have let them in more and kind of influence me more. Yeah. So
I was thinking about that scripture. It's just, share the burden with one another.
correct.
And, as men, we just try to bear the burden.
Correct.
I'll deal with it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And it's hard as a man to admit that you want to share something, because we say, okay, we're the husband, we're, the backbone of the family, spiritual leader, it's like, we can do this, but it's finding that balance of being vulnerable, but also knowing that where does your strength come from, right? Because if your spirit or your heart's not, your soul is not strong, the rest of your body is going to fail at some point in time. And so being able to make sure that was in the right mindset was very important. And it took me 3 or 4 years to get there because I was too stubborn. I just thought, okay, keep working. I need to provide, support my wife, and there'd be times that, she was, struggling and I wasn't there. I may have said a few words, but we may have gotten to an argument and I would kind of, let her do her own thing and me my own thing. And it's like, no, I don't need to be doing this. I need to comfort her. And it's like,
His support was, I'm going to go out and financially support us. But there were times when it was like, that doesn't matter to me.
yeah, that wasn't what was as important at that point in time. What was important was making sure I was there for her, Yeah, and the mindset I was there for her in other ways, but it's like, what's important right now? That was the most important thing. And there are a lot of times that, I wasn't there for her. And, looking back, it's like, okay, be there for her, even if it's just holding her, encouraging her, or doing the small things around the house. It's like you have an argument, but it's like at that point in time, the biggest struggle in our marriage was, conceiving, having kids. That was the biggest thing. And it's like being able to navigate that year after year after year before we finally had Liam was like, okay, this is a struggle in our marriage. And, I wish I could tell myself in the very beginning is to, be there more for her when she calls on you, and don't just think, oh, I don't need to, or let's just focus more time on this or that. That's something I wish I had done.
That's good.
So
What about you, Pamela?
Well, there are a few things. Obviously, God makes no mistakes. And that's the one thing that I wish I could remind myself throughout that. There was a scripture I leaned on, heavily towards the end, but to me, like I wasn't doing the things that I should have been doing. I was getting the outlet, and I knew what God was trying to tell me, and I was doing all these things. So I would recommend an outlet first, whether, like he said, a mentor, including people in your life, journaling, getting into your Bible, worshiping, whatever that looks like for you, have that outlet, that source that can kind of help you process and move on. Because like we talked about before, like it doesn't define you, and it's a part of you. It's a journey, and it's a testimony at the end of the day. Like, God makes no mistakes. He put us in this story for a reason. And at the time, we didn't know the reason. We didn't know what our story was going to look like. And so one thing I would say is just keep waiting and trusting on him. And you've said it in some of your services that you just have to do the work, keep digging. Like it's you can't just sit there and wait. And sometimes there are things God is asking you to do that you're ignoring. Yeah. And one of the things he was asking me to do is to be patient. And I wasn't. And then we were out of embryos, and I didn't have any other choice but to be patient. And so patience is big for me. If I was speaking to myself. If I was speaking to others that are in the situation that we were in, he kind of hit it nail on the head. Like, your partner's going through it too. And you may feel like grieving it one way, and they may feel like grieving it another way. And for us, his grievance was, I'm going to distract myself. I'm going to do what I can to help financially, and I'm going to distract myself and throw myself into my business and do all of that. My distraction was, I just want to be near you, however that looks. And so that, again, you guys are going through it together and figuring out that dynamic of making sure you both are being fed in other ways in your marriage, because it's not just infertility. You guys are married. You have other things, and we're best friends. And I don't think, like I said at the very beginning, I don't think if we didn't have a solid marriage that we would have lasted. And a lot of couples, unfortunately, that go through infertility, they don't. They get the baby, and then they realize that they spent the last 5 years hating each other, and they had that one goal, and now they've got it, and they don't like each other anymore.
Destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately. That is great advice. I was asking when Liam was born, because you mentioned keep digging.
Yeah.
I never told y'all this. I'm going to tell you enough. I never told y'all this because of everything that was going on. And not only that, but I didn't want to be the guy who tried to prophesy and then was completely off. But I remember, if you remember that first Sunday that year, I got up and I was like, the word of the Lord for our church is, you won't see the wind, you won't see the rain, you won't know when, you won't know how. But if you would just pick up your shovel, keep digging those ditches, God's going to fill it. And I remember when I was writing that, the Lord put it on my heart, and he said, this is for Micah and Pamela first.
And I knew it.
Did you?
I did. If you go back and look at my first post on January 1st of 2024, I referenced that.
Did you really?
I do.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And I wanted so bad to say that in front of our church, because I wanted them to receive, like, on your behalf, to have faith for you. And I just was so nervous, so I apologize. I feel like now, looking back, like, man, I should have just trusted God and said it.
No,
but
we knew.
yeah, that. And so, yeah, so when, and I also had this thought, because I remember, another thing the Lord told me is like, hey, it might not happen until December 31st, 11:59 p.m. And I thought, dear Lord, if she has a baby on December 31st, 11:59 p.m.
Cried.
But it's just, every time I see him, I want you to know, for me personally, he is an anchor of my personal faith now. It's amazing to see him because, he's an answer to y'all's prayer, but he's a manifestation of God's word.
Yeah.
He is.
Yes, it's literally like whatever plan God has for his life, I don't know. And I'm not trying to call him to ministry or anything. Like, ministry is wherever you are, whatever you're doing. But I can just tell you right now, like, the enemy is pissed because that little boy was born. And yes, his sister as well. I mean, because your children are just miracle after miracle. But that breakthrough moment of all the ditches you dug for 5 straight years getting filled. So I just want to commend you on your journey of faith and trusting God. And just thank you for being honest and transparent about what you're feeling, what you went through. Haters are going to hate, but there's one thing, Pamela, I will tell you, I saw you do that I've never been good at. I don't have the gift of encouragement. And I don't know if you naturally have the gift of encouragement.
I don't know. I mean, I was in sports my whole life, so maybe like a little
Maybe,
bit,
okay.
but not necessarily.
I just know watching what you posted and seeing how you spoke to other women in the midst of the darkest season of your life, you never stopped encouraging other people.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you did that, but by the grace of God. But I just want to commend you. It was incredible to watch because I don't think I could have done that.
Thank you.
And I believe it's really, I know it's helped other women. I mean, there's women in our church who are encouraged. You just posted a video the other day, and one of our mutual friends said, I needed this today.
Yeah.
Because she was struggling that day.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I know who you're talking about, and I think about them all the time. And but yes, that keep digging word, I felt it in my soul. Nobody knew we were about to start our second round of IVF, and that year changed our lives. And like you said, we look at Liam as a miracle every day, and people look at their kids, and of course people love their kids. And don't get me lying, I will complain up and down about Liam's behavior, but that their kids are crazy. And we were blessed to have two, and he loves his sister, and I think he knows that she's a miracle, and he knows, and the bond that they're gonna have is just such a blessing. And we look at him and we're like, we think about like, who would you be if you were a younger brother? Because we lost 3 boys before him. And we think about that, and then we're like, but you wouldn't be you.
Yep.
You wouldn't be who you are if we were young.
There's a purpose to every plan.
Yeah.
So, God had his eyes on us the whole time. And through the midst of it, it was difficult to see that. But now that we've gone through the journey, we can look back and really just look at our kids and say, wow, so worth it. And with her having to go through the physical part of it, even more so. But, there were times that, when Liam was, 6 months, 7 months, and wake up at, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, right? Which all parents go through. But it's like, I kept telling myself, I said, I get to change these diapers. I get to do this.
Yeah.
I don't have to, I get to.
Yeah.
And I kept saying that in the mindset, because it's just something that stuck with me because I know how blessed I am to have him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even
My
the difficult
coworker,
times.
she's like, how are you so patient with him? Because she knows me. She's like, every time you talk about, well, Liam didn't sleep all night, and you're just got a smile on your face. And I'm like, we don't have the same parental feelings that people that got a baby willy-nilly is super easy. We don't feel that way because of everything we walk through. It's like, yeah, we're tired. We're not going to lie and say we're not tired or we're exhausted or, we wish we had slept the night before. But God made strong coffee. And we look and we are so blessed. Like he said, we get to be woken up by a baby all night.
No.
That's a blessing that we weren't sure we would ever see. So, there are nights where I'm like, go to bed. But thank God we've got a wonderful daughter that sleeps all night. But Liam was rough.
Yeah.
He was rough. And like he said, there was just that silver lining of like, we're blessed.
Yeah.
It's hard, but we're blessed.
Yes. It's not that it gets easier,
Yeah.
but these are the days you prayed for.
Right.
These are the days you trusted God
Yep.
for.
I look at my kids and they're playing on the floor, and I'm like, he did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did it.
Well, I always love to ask if you're up for it. One of you, both of you, would y'all mind it doesn't have to be long, robust, but just praying for somebody who might be watching this and walking through a similar journey and just whatever it's on your heart.
Sure.
Would you mind praying? Thank you.
Lord, we come to you now to encourage others that may or may not go through this journey. Just know that you are in control, and every journey is different, but the ultimate goal is to lead us back to you, and knowing that, we have to trust you even when we're in our lowest depths, lowest holes. God, you you give us the resources to dig our way out, climb our way out, God. And it's all for you, God. And if anyone is out there, asking, hey, what do I need to trust on? Just saying, hey, trust God is difficult to do unless you've gone through that journey. But just keep pushing and keep digging, and it's one of those things where you have to go through the journey and ask yourself, is this going to be worth it? And it is worth it, and make sure that you had that other significant other and your wife or your husband, and trust them as well, and ask for encouragement, God. And God, I pray that you just give those who are in need the opportunity, and just know the blessing is always going to be worth it. And I pray this in your name, God. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank y'all for sharing. Thank you for walking through this, and thank you for being a part of the church, but thank you for bringing your miracles around us. It encourages everyone who knows, and I really hope people watching this are blessed and encouraged.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can.
What we want.
Thank you. No, that's the key.
Yes, really. I appreciate it.
Thank you.